Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us early on a Monday. I hope everyone has their coffee. I still have mine here, so I'll be drinking it as we go through the webinar. So this is called Solving the Skills Gap, Finding the Talent You Need Using the Employment Ontario Network, and I'm really happy to have two very knowledgeable folks with us this morning. Louis De Palma is the Director of SME Programs with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and he's responsible for developing and implementing initiatives of the OCC that are designed to strengthen the business climate of Ontario and support the members by providing them access to resources. And Marianne Moore works down in Windsor with the Unemployed Help Center. She's been with them now for 30 years. Is that right, Marianne? 30 years plus. And she really is an expert in everything EO, and you'll get a lot of great information from her today. The webinar is a great resource, especially for employers, because we find there is a bit of a knowledge gap with employers not knowing what's available and what resources are out there for them that are all free of charge, and they're available for people to take advantage of, and unfortunately a lot of people don't know about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Louis and Marianne. We have the full hour. We'll save the questions till the end, so if you have any questions, we will get to them towards the end of the hour, but I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you very much, Trudy. So let's start today. Just Marianne, we're going to have a bit of a dialogue today about how the Employment Ontario and specifically the Unemployed Help Center, helps employers and helps job seekers connect with each other so that we can, get that talent in the right place so it makes sense for businesses and it also makes sense for the job seekers. So can you start off maybe by just telling us a little bit about the Unemployed Health Center and some of the things that you focus on?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Well, the Unemployed Help Center has been around for 42 years. We started in 1977 as a little storefront operation. Now our facility is well over 25,000 square feet, all on one floor, and every service that we offer is available under one roof, which is really nice. We are a hub of hope for everyone. That's what's really important. We have basic needs. For example, we have a food bank, which has now been transformed into a food pantry, as we saw that in order to stay up, be more modern with food banks, we have our clients come in and they choose their own food. So they're only going to choose what they like. And it's like, it gives them the feeling of going grocery shopping, and they shop with a volunteer. Really, it's a good way of having a client come in. And we have fresh vegetables through our Plentiful Harvest Food Rescue Program. We've rescued over 17 million pounds of food since 2012, food that would have gone to landfill. We also have Keep the Heat, which is an energy support program. We have a 1.6 acre community garden right on site as well. We are a hub. We are also a satellite for the Greater Essex County District School Board, where we, in our community kitchen, where we have a chef teacher on site. We also prepare approximately 900 meals a week for the Meals on Wheels program. We have newcomer programs, computer training, hospitality training, language instruction for newcomers. We have another cooking program for youth. We have, in the summer, we have computers for youth and a conversation circle. So there's a lot going on. And one of our more recent programs is we even have a bus. We have a Shuttling for Success, a 20-seat bus where we have a driver that actually goes out and picks up our clients and brings them to class and brings them home again, which is really, really good. Those are just some of the other programs above and beyond Employment Ontario. We have a full suite of Employment Ontario programs. We have, when a person walks in the front door, the first thing they do is they see the Resource Center. It's the center. It's staffed by a coordinator. We have a pre-apprenticeship program for cooks. And we also do the Second Career program. We do all the youth programming, Youth Job Connection Summer, Youth Job Link. We have on-site literacy and basic skills. And affectionately my favorite, the Canada Ontario Job Grant. So I guess the next question would be what can Employment Ontario service providers, what can they do to help employers? And there's a lot that we can do that maybe employers don't tap into, and I'm going to give you some examples. We have skilled employment counselors and job developers. We meet with clients. They use their expertise and their relationship with employers to see what the employer is really looking for. For example, if an employer would have received a resume and they look at it and they say this person doesn't have the exact same skills we're looking for, there may be transferable skills that the employment counselor or the job developer is confident that they believe would be a good fit for this employer. So they may have just put that resume aside if they didn't see the exact fit, but that's where we come in. We get to know our clients, and we wouldn't refer somebody unless we believed in them and believed that they could do the work. And these soft skills, they go a long way. These transferable and these soft skills go a long way. And another thing we offer to employers is we hold job fairs. We help them with job fairs here, whether in our resource center or at their site. We assist them, and it's really proven to be helpful as well.
Okay, so Marianne, can I just start on the Jobseeker site for a second?
Sure.
So just walk me through. I'm a job seeker. I haven't availed myself of your services. I walk through the front door. What's the first thing that happens with me? Just walk me through that process.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you're going to be served. You're going to be seen right there and then. You're not going to have to wait for an appointment. We welcome walk-ins. In fact, we have a sign on our front lawn that says walk-ins are welcome. Come in, we're here to help. So anybody can just walk right in. They'll meet with an employment counselor immediately. And and sometimes they're not even ready for it because they don't have like a resume with them. We say, go in our resource center, print one out. Let's see what we can do to help. From there, they develop a plan of action. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What kind of work are you looking for? And they work closely. They set up a return to work action plan to help them. They take it into account, childcare. What is their present income? Is there, do they have a bus pass? Are they on Ontario Works? What can we do to assist with that? We help them with essential skills training. We have a 2-day workshop where a client can do their resume, cover letter, and do an actual mock interview practice. And then they can utilize our resource center. And what's really good, we're open one Saturday a month, and we're open every Wednesday till 7:30. And we have an employment counselor here until 7:30, and on the Saturday to meet with any people who are, let's say they're working in more precarious employment or part-time employment and want something full-time. We're here for them. So the service is immediate.
Okay, so with the job seeker, basically then, whether it's a scheduled appointment or an unscheduled appointment, you're really trying to understand what my needs are and what my employment goals are, and then you try and assess me as to whether there's some programs that are available either within your own organization, or do you refer out to other organizations as well if there's some programs that you don't actually give yourself, but you're in the assessment process, you decide, you figure out that there is that additional need. How do you handle that?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example of a client that came in and was facing some personal issues at home. And before she could be ready to work, she had to, we referred her out for counseling. So she was seen immediately by Windsor Family Service Bureau. She got the counseling for herself and her teenage children, and it put her in a better frame of mind. She was ready to work, and we matched her with an employer, and she didn't think that it would be that easy to follow, and she did very well, and she's working, and she's really, really it made everything just fell into place for her. So that's one example. Yeah.
A great example, because many times people think, that the services that you may provide or organizations like you provide might be just really, really singular or focused in a vertical, right. but you do have those connections horizontally, so you can triage individuals to other services that they require, because sometimes it's not just about employment. There's other issues there that need to be looked at, and so you can help with that as well.
Absolutely. Like I'll give you another example. If a client comes in hungry, last year we served over 40,000 bowls of soup to our clients. Homemade soup is made fresh daily. A client can come in and have their lunch, as well as if they're hungry, they can go right to the food bank, get some food, go home feeling okay, this is okay, I'm doing all right. We advocate for our clients, whether it be through finding counseling, how we refer them out to housing, what legal assistance. Yes, that's a big part of it, because they have to take care of those basic needs first before they can move forward.
Yeah, you mentioned during one, a little bit when you were describing the organization, you mentioned about that you help with soft skills. Can you just explain a little bit about the soft skills? Because I know when I talk to employers, that seems to be extremely important to them these days, is that whole soft skills issue. So can you just explain how you help the client with the soft skills?
Sure, absolutely. We have, like, let's say, for example, in our youth job connection, this is for the youth, we do a pre-employment, 60 hours of pre-employment over 2 weeks. This teaches them, we talk about even motivation, getting up every morning, goal setting, all those skills that, using like common sense problem solving, decision making, what would you do if? So these soft skills that are so transferable that every single employer is looking for something like that. And then with that, let's say for with the youth job connection, when the client is placed, we even have a job coach to work alongside with them. I had an example of an individual who had never really worked and was sorting clothing, okay, at a resale. So he, feeling frustrated, not sure if he's doing, the job coach worked right alongside him and told him how to place him, of course, with the employer support, and that really proved to be very successful. The individual may have given up, may have walked out and said, I can't do this, but with a job coach there, just further reinforcing and making you feel, okay, I'm learning new skills. And
how,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, just those soft skills are, there's something that you can learn, you can improve on, and it's really, they do exercises, it gives them a chance to really think about, what the employer is looking for, rather than putting them right into a job, and if something goes wrong, they wouldn't know what to do. So with this, it helps them.
How long will that job coach assist? Is
However,
there a limited time frame, or?
No. And it could go on to another job too. Let's say an individual lost the job, the job coach will advocate for them as well, between the employment counselor and the job coach and the job developer. They'll all work to help, and we always help somebody, no matter how long it takes.
Okay, now can I switch gears a little bit? You mentioned about the second career program.
Yes.
Can you just explain to me what that means, or how does that work?
Okay, that's for somebody who's been laid off, or and looking to do something different. There's a whole series of, there's an eligibility matrix, and they have to do some research on what they want to take in post-secondary, and then we assist them with filling out the application, making sure this is the right new second career for them, and that it's achievable. And we fill out the app with them. There's a lot of research. They have to research the NOC codes. They have to have a job search. It's a process, but we take them from start to finish with them. And our staff is very, very, very skilled at doing second career applications. They've done very, very well with them, and they enjoy them. It's a good thing, really good.
So now I got a really good understanding of what you do with the client. I think I got a good background on that. So now I'm going to pretend I'm an employer.
Okay.
So I'm one of the businesses in the area, And, you know, I haven't availed myself of your service in our Employment Ontario service in the past. And I call you. I say, you know, good morning, I'm an employer. I'm just trying to understand, how does your system work and how do I fit into that system as an employer? What would you tell me?
Okay, well, the first thing I would do is have you talk to one of our staff and say, okay, what is it that you're looking for? Have you utilized any of our services before? And we, like for example, if it was Canada Ontario Job Grant, the first thing I would do is go out and meet with them. I want to go right on site, take a look at their facility, and just to get an idea of who they are and what they're about. And what's happened with the Canada Ontario Job Grant, it goes one step further, because they may be interested in training their employees or new hires, but then they may have job openings. And that's where we can do the dual thing. We can utilize our Employment Ontario, our employment services to fill those gaps. So, okay, back on track. So employer calls, what are you looking for? We write up a job opportunity, a job posting. We share it with the staff. We ask what they're looking for as far as individuals. What's the best way to do it? We'll present you with resumes, pre-screened candidates, which is really important. So if an employer were just to post on, let's say on a website, they don't, the resumes, they may get hundreds of resumes for a few positions. With us, we're going to ensure that who we're giving you is going to be a good fit as best as we can.
Help me? Yeah, will you help me with that job posting? Because I'm a
Absolutely.
you know, a small to medium-sized enterprise. You know, I'm doing 17 things as the president of the company. I don't have HR, so I'm really looking for someone to help me with this hiring process.
Absolutely. We can, we'll write the job opportunity, have you look at it, make sure it meets your criteria, add to it. We will post it internally or on our website. It's entirely up to the employer. Also, we will offer our site here if they want to come in and do interviews, if it's easier for them to come here or have the individual go there. We would offer a job fair in our resource center or at their site, or even at a community center, wherever they want to do it. We will post it, advertise it, and then we will get the resumes for the employer, have them look at it, and then through Employment Ontario, we can even offer the job matching placement incentive, which is going to help offset the training that the individual is going to need. So monetary, like funding to help them with that. It could be a 2-week job trial. It could go into a longer placement, depending on, it's not cookie cutter. It's got to be the good match from the candidate to the employer. We want to make sure that they're going to get the training and promote job retention with that employee.
So before I ask, because I'm going to ask a little later about the actual incentives of how they work, but again, I'm putting myself in the shoes of that small business person, and this is great. You've helped me post my job, you've screened the resumes for me. Now I'm getting into the interview phase. And, you know, maybe the last 2 or 3 hires, I really didn't post a job. You know, I went out and I asked who knew somebody, you know, and it was a referral system. So maybe I'm not that comfortable with the whole interview process. Will you help me with some questions so that I understand the questions that I can ask, some questions you can't ask? You know, there's pieces of legislation out there, you know, that give guidance on this. Will you help me with that?
Absolutely. Part of what we do in our EST and Employment Skills Training Program is prepare an individual, and that same can apply to employers. Absolutely. We can give them the basic, some of the questions that are more transferable skilled, and then we can ask them to do the more hands-on job skill questions that can help us come up with them. We've had it where we've even sat in with interviews with employers, just so that some of them, like you said, they don't have HR, just so they make sure they're asking the right questions, getting the good answers, so they have a good fit for their job, for their opening.
Okay, so I'm convinced now. I want your services. You've convinced me. So now I'm thinking, okay, so, you know, and I get this question a lot too. So what other wraparound services are there? And you mentioned incentives. So maybe could you walk me through some of the incentives that are available? And I know there's a number of them. Maybe just, you know, walk me through each one just so I have a better understanding as an employer what I may or may not be able to access.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the first one I'm going to talk about is through employment services called the job matching placement incentive, where we help offset the cost of training. We give the employer and I can't just say an X amount. It depends on what the client has. Like I said, it's not a cookie cutter. We can help offset the cost of training that individual. So it could be 2 weeks, it could be 4 weeks, it could be 8 weeks. It depends on the individual and what the position involves. So that's
this is the original onboarding training?
Yes.
So it's the original onboarding training that you can help with.
And we can also provide a training support to the client. So if they need specific equipment such as a uniform, work boots, safety glasses, some very training, some very quick training, for example, like a first aid or CPR, something such as that. There are training supports to help that employer get that person there, because you don't want to be the reason for not showing up is because they didn't have the work boots. We can get that to them overnight. We've got, we've done that quite often. And then there's also the Canada Ontario Job Grant. Employers, it's an employer-driven program. So it's to help the employer chooses individuals to be trained to help meet their their workforce development needs. It covers up to, there's the small employer, large employer. Small employer is 99 people or less. Large employer is 100 plus. So I'll give you an example. We were talking more of small employers. The employer ends up only paying 1/6 of the training costs of this training. Now, mind you, there's eligibility. They have to fill in eligibility, answer questions to make sure that they have the proper workplace safety. They have insurance, etc. A CRA number. There's a lot that goes to it. But let's say the employer really wants to bring in this training, and it will further enhance their workforce. To pay 1/6 of the cost is, I have employers that cannot believe it. They just cannot believe. And then we even sit with them to fill out the application. It's one thing we've always done, because it can be a little daunting, but we've done it so many times. We go through it with them. It's all online, and we try to make it. And then, like I said, I immediately go out and meet with the employer, see the work site, see to ensure it's a legitimate company too. And then we help them through that entire process. But like I said, what's happened is that they promote from within, because these staff have gotten new training, and now there's job openings. So that's where we come in again with Employment Ontario. We have those pre-screened candidates. It goes on and on and on. It's really, it's a good thing. It's a good fit.
So you talked about the 1/6 that the employer would pay. Is there a limited number of weeks that training has to be taken place? And also, what would the cap be in terms of the overall expenditure?
Okay, the training cannot exceed 1 year. There are other things, such as training can't be done with, a business owner cannot take part, or an individual with a controlling interest. They're not eligible. We look at the NOC code of the people being trained and make sure they don't have a 00, which means senior managers. Start with a 00. It is a maximum of 10,000. It'll cover a maximum of $10,000 per trainee, and small employers who are training and hiring unemployed individuals may be eligible for 100% of the funding, which is up to $15,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's support for textbooks up to $500, and if there's some if they have to travel more than 24 kilometers one way, there's up to $500 in transportation costs that are reimbursed.
So that leads me to ask the question. So the training doesn't necessarily need to take place on my site as an employer. It can actually be off-site, and I could actually pay a third-party trainer for the training with the funds that I'm receiving?
Yes, it has to be it can't be in-house training. It can't be product vendor training. There are a lot of eligibility, but that's why anybody who provides a Canada Ontario job grant will know that. They'll go through it and check it. There's a whole series of checks and balances we have to do prior to approval of an application.
Okay, so this is great. I think I understand your services from an employer perspective. I want to now avail myself of the services. I go through the process. You help me with the job ad, which is great. You give me some pre-screened applicants, which is great. You help me with some questions that so because I haven't maybe conducted so many interviews in the past, and I decide who to hire. So now I hire this person, and we go through the initial training. Everything is good, but invariably with every new employee that's hired, there's always a little bit of a speed bump there, right? Nothing's always smooth in life. There's always a bit of a bump. So do you provide some retention services, or can you refer the employer to an organization that provides retention services when that speed bump may be encountered?
Well, we would go on site. We would talk. It's our client. Let's see what we can do to help. What's the problem? They may not be. They may feel more comfortable with us as far as, I'm having a hard time because I'm still struggling with transportation, or we will intervene to see what we can do for sure, because we want that client to stay. And if that employer is reaching out to us, we know they want them to stay there. So we will do what it takes to get that individual the help that they need.
So you provide that service before it gets to a performance issue. You're there. You're willing to help the company. You're willing to help the individual to take a look at what may be some of the friction points there, and how can you help resolve them. Mm-hmm. And can you give us an example of something that you've been involved with, or a bit of an example of a recent retention support that you gave to an organization?
Okay, we had. I'm going to go back to that one individual who was just not understanding the concept of learning that job. So the employer did reach out to us rather than letting them go. So that says so much about how we are, we're trusted to come in and assist. It was something that required a few days work on our part with the coach, but the coach already had the relationship. There was already that trusting relationship with the client, and the client listened to the job coach and understood and learned the job. And it was, like I said, with all the support and appreciation from the employer. And I've had another client that I had a young man who was having a hard time finding work, and I had dealt with this one employer through the Canada Ontario job grant. So I called them up and I said, this is I have a young man, and he'd really like to get into this field, but he's lacking confidence, lacking the skills. So I had him go in. He met with them. Well, they had him start out by sweeping floors in the shop. He was learning more of his social skills, trying to adapt. And this employer, they didn't have a job opening. They carved that for him through our relationship, through our our EO services. that employer said, you know what? I do see something there that I like. So let's start him out at the and he was willing to sweep the floors. He was willing to just observe. That went on for quite some time. Now he's a CNC machinist. That's what he wanted to do. So it took just that little bit of what we can do through EO to get him there. Because if he would have walked in with a resume, they wouldn't have considered him. He needed that. Yeah.
That extra push. So you talked a bit about job carving there. Can you just explain a little bit about job carving, because it's something that is obviously quite prevalent in the employer community, but it's not as well understood as it should be. So can you just explain that a little bit?
Well, that's where we take what the individual has, and that employer works with us to carve out something for them. So another idea may be that, I'll give you an example. I just recently had a client. This is so recent. She's always worked in a call center, and she wanted to be a baker. If she would have walked in with her call center resume to that bakery, they wouldn't have considered. What we did is we contacted the employer and said, this is what I have a client who, she doesn't have the word baked anything on her resume. This is what she likes doing. She's got a real flair for it. She wants to expand on her skills. So the employer said, okay, let me try her for a couple of weeks. Let me see what goes on. Let me see how she does. Well, she started by just decorating the donuts, like doing the dips and filling, and saw that the way she was working was like this. The employer was like, okay, now let's move her into this. Now she's doing she's doing the pastries that are usually done by somebody with years of experience. Here she is doing these amazing pastries because she's got a flair for it. So that was like a bit of a carve where she wouldn't have been given the chance unless we had that relationship with the employer, and they did that. They saw what she had amazing transferable skills. She had the knack, and so that's that match that it's hard to Employment Ontario. What can I say?
Well, what you talk about transferable skills is extremely important, because when I'm just going to put myself in the shoes of an individual who maybe has worked in an organization for 10, 15, 20 years, and sometimes things happen in the economy changes, and then I may be out of work. So then I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what are my skill sets? Because typically what we tend to do, I know what I would do, I would take a look at the job that I currently have, that job title, or maybe some other job titles that I held over the years. And then if I'm searching for work, I'm looking for the same type of job title. So it sounds like if I come to see you, you'll take a look at actually what my skill sets are, and maybe there'll be jobs there that I might not have even considered. Can you maybe explain that a little more for us?
Sure. So, sometimes you got to look at, what do you like doing? Where do you see yourself? Maybe this is where if you were laid off, maybe this is where second career can come in, and take a look at something. That's why they call it a second career. It's something different, and to have that available is it's amazing. But let's say you're not quite sure what you want to do. We have choices where they can come in and do a computerized career assessment tool. It's not going to give you all the answers, but it may give you some ideas. And then plus the expertise here with the counselors, they may say, well, have you ever tried, something like this? They give them ideas too, because this is what they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing as far as that. And it leaves you with some ideas of maybe there's something different for me. It doesn't always have to be the same thing. So that's...
It makes sense to help them explore how their skills can be used in a different totally different type of job function, because there are a lot of generic skills out there. And because we're, we don't really see them ourselves, but it's easier when someone else is assessing us for those skill sets.
Exactly. Things that we don't even know that we have, yet somebody else sees it.
Okay. So what are some of the challenges? So everything I've heard, like this, if I'm a job seeker, I want to come to your organization. Okay. If I'm an employer, again, I want to come to your organization. What are some of the challenges you encounter, let's say first on the job seeker side?
Challenges, confidence, transportation, fear, fear of the unknown, fear of not knowing what to expect, fear of well, I've never done this type of work before. How do you know I'll be good at it? And that's why, a job trial may be exactly what they're looking for. It could be lack of English skills. It could be that they're a newcomer and not quite sure. And that's, we have English classes here. We have, it could be low literacy. We can get them feeling more confident about their literacy skills, maybe move them towards their GED. There's so much. I know you're thinking just the job, but there may be other little things that go with it, such as education, English ability, computer skills. With the, we have the hospitality training. There's a lot that they can still take advantage of. Maybe they just can't start a job right away. They have to do some upgrading first. It's all here.
So can you explain a little bit the job trial? I'm fascinated by that. So I come to you, I'm not sure, but you can actually help me test some jobs out?
Mm-hmm. It can be, like, for example, with the baker, it was a 2-week job trial where just to see, did she show up on time? How did she fit into our environment? How did she like the environment? How did she like starting work at 5 a.m.? And she had to take 2 buses to get there, and it's just, let's work out some of the bugs, some of the kinks before she, sees that, wow, I really like this. That kind of thing where you want to make sure that it's to test the waters, to see if you even like it. Not just see if you like it as a client. Do you see yourself doing this type of work? That should be offered to, and sometimes they're unpaid. Sometimes they're just they're more of a mentorship where they can job shadow, take a look at, just shadow somebody for a day. We just had somebody do that in a pharmaceutical setting where they could see how a pharmacist assistant works, to see if that's something what they wanted to pursue in second career. So there's a lot. There's more to it than meets the eye, and that's why it's so important to sit down with that client and say, okay, let's look at what we can do.
So you mentioned mentoring a little bit. Typically, how long would a mentoring relationship last, or is it something that lasts a day, 2 days, a week? Is it something that goes on beyond that time period, or just explain it for us?
It can go on beyond. It depends on the employer's time, of course, and how much the individual wants to give. But it's really good to like we've even had individuals here where they want to see about being a receptionist, where they could see what it's like to answer a busy switchboard and things like that. It just depends on. It's almost like it turns into almost like a volunteer opportunity as well. So. It just depends on what the individual wants, and they can go on to something else if they don't like it. Like I said, it's a really good way to test the waters.
Well, what would you say, you've been in this business a long time, what would you say is a good indicator of future success in employment? What do you see?
What do I see? Oh my goodness. Oh, I see how we've honed our skill. We've honed our skills with employers, with our clients. It's always, of course, room for learning new things, but I feel with the program offerings that we have, there's a lot that we can help a client and help employers. There's a lot going on under one roof. That's another thing. A bus comes right to the door. it wasn't always that way. When we moved here in 1992, the bus didn't come at the door. Just little things like that. It's the whole thing. It's that hub. It's getting to know that client and answering to their needs, because there's so much that we may not know. Let's say meeting them the first time, we find out as we develop a relationship with them and foster all this all these good things to happen to them.
So how do you advertise all this good work that you do?
Well,
if I'm a job seeker, let's start with that. I'm a job seeker. How do I find out about you?
okay. So we have social media is huge. We've got social media. We have our website. If you were to Google Unemployed, the first thing you're going to get is us. And we have different, social media, word of mouth is always the biggest referral is social media. We also have, we attend meetings. We're out there. We're out in the public. Like, so many of us are on different committees. We reach out. We do presentations. We go into employers. When anybody wants us, we're there. You know, that's important to get that. And word of mouth is our biggest referral. Definitely.
Same for employers as well. It's that word of mouth. Employers come to you, they're
Yes.
satisfied with your service, and then they pass it on.
Yes, we've had employers walk in the door saying, "Okay, I've heard about you. Tell me more." And yeah, and it could start with the, like I said, the Canada Ontario Job Grant and move on from there. Yeah.
Well, no. Now, is there in the Windsor area, is there any site or any tools where if I'm an employer, I can kind of go to the site and I can punch in a service that I'm looking for, and the service may pop up for me?
Yes, on our website you can search by that, and there's always a link to if you've got a question, and it goes right to the email goes directly to the individual whose department it is. So.
Okay.
I'd like to find out more about the Canada Ontario Job Grant. That would go to me, and so we would call that employer, right away and start the ball rolling with that. Our website's quite interactive that way and available in different languages too.
So what other organizations would you work with? Obviously, you have a great service that you're offering there, and it's multidisciplinary in nature.
Yes.
Who are your kind of lateral partners out there in the community?
Okay, well, we belong to our CEO is the president of the Windsor Association of Food Banks, Windsor and Essex County District Food Banks Association. So that's another hub, as well as the United Way. Any services such that deal with clients with disabilities. Yes, we're part of the Windsor Essex Employment Group, which is part of the Discoverability Windsor initiative. So we're working closely with that. Legal assistance, Ontario Works, Hiatus House. There are so many local Workforce Windsor Essex. We work with them closely. So there's a lot. If we don't do it, we'll find out who does.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interaction there. There's a lot of referral going on. So again, if I'm a job seeker or if I'm an employer, the fact that I come to your organization, if you don't have the service, you know who can provide me that service,
Yes.
and you will refer me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, you talked a little bit about persons with disability. Just, maybe can you tell me or give me an example of the type of work you're doing with persons with disabilities in the community?
Yes, I know we're working with the new Discoverability Windsor as far as getting the website launched, and right now we are encouraging employers to take part, to post jobs for individuals with disabilities, because it's over 24% of the population has a disability. So having employers who are finding that that they have so many, so many jobs and not enough people to fill those jobs, to hire somebody with a disability. This opportunity will allow an individual to post their resume and work with the employer, with an employer that's already been, who's been part of this, and that's important.
Well, I have to tell you, we've just finished a survey at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and we issued our economic report. And what we noted in the survey is that it's over 75% of employers are telling us that, you know, one of their top considerations is finding the right talent. So clearly, there's a lot of need out there to match, you know, individuals with jobs and jobs with individuals. And it sounds like that the work that you're doing in the Employment Ontario system can really help in that regard. It's a matter of getting the word out and getting people to understand what those services are.
Exactly. You know, we're easy to find. You know, like I said, there's over 300 sites across the province. Just Google Employment Ontario. Employers can find out who's closest to them, and go from there. There's even a online chat that you can, when you find Employment Ontario, like they'll get you with somebody who's in your area for sure.
Well, Marianne, thank you very much. Unless you have anything to add, you've answered all my questions, you know, so, and I tried to put myself in the shoes of both a job seeker and an employer. You've answered my questions. I'm wondering if we have a little bit of time here, I see on the clock. I wonder if there's any questions from participants that perhaps they may want to ask if we didn't get to those questions. So I'll flip on the Q&A here and see if there's any questions. Maybe we can do that for the next 5 minutes or so. What do you think?
I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so right now I've just flipped on the Q&A, and right now there are no open questions at this point in time. So I think we'll give it a couple more minutes to see if there's any questions out there. Maybe then I can turn it over to Trudy if there aren't any questions, just to close the webinar.
Oh, here's one. How are the non-EO programs funded?
There's one that came through. Okay, so can you help us with that one? So how are they funded?
Well, we're a nonprofit charitable organization, so we do a lot of fundraising. We have United Way funding. We are also funded through IRCC. We have funding through the City of Windsor for the Keep the Heat program. We have galas. We sell raffle tickets. We get volunteers. We get donations for our food bank. We have a golf tournament every year for the last 27 years to raise money for unfunded programs. We pound the pavement, to say the least.
So that leads me to a question. So when you're providing these services both to the job seeker and to the employer, are there any costs to either one of those groups?
No.
So there's no cost. So the costs are actually you provide them without charging the employer, without charging the job seeker.
Oh, absolutely. No fee. No fee for service at all.
Okay, that's great to know. I see another question has popped up here. Do you get large employers using the service?
Absolutely. Yes. One major employer in Windsor recently came out to us where there are thousands of employees because they needed some help finding the right fit, and that's groundbreaking for us. It was really quite a nice surprise to know that we are out there and we are known, and yes, they've come to us. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is it's indicative of the fact that there's, you know, I don't know whether you want to characterize it as a skills gap or a skills mismatch. There clearly is a lot of difficulty in the labor market now trying to connect people with jobs and jobs with people. So I think we're seeing a shift. I know I've seen a shift in the last 5 or 6 years in terms of how people deal with filling positions simply because of that gap or skills mismatch. I see here another question that's come through is how do you entice an employer to become receptive to a job trial?
Well, we tell them there's no no obligation. By all means, I have a candidate who's interested in this line of work. I sell their skills. I sell the client skills. They're motivated. They can get there. This is something they've really wanted to do. If they like I said, if they would have applied, they maybe wouldn't have been considered. But can we just try for 2 weeks? I'm there to help you. I'm there to back you up. I'd like you to meet with the client. I can come in with the individual and meet with you. And would you be receptive to that? We could offer you X amount of dollars over the 2 weeks just to give them a try. And it takes that determination and that selling from us to let the employers know. And like I said, they talk. They that's word of mouth. Even like you said, to bring in clients or to bring in employers is really important. And then we'll even tell them, like, this is what we've done, this is what we do. Look at our website, and it's quite favorable.
Yeah, and there's no commitment beyond the 2 weeks.
None.
Strictly a 2-week trial. If it works out for both of them, then there could be something further down the road. So it's a non-committed 2-week period, so that both the job seeker and the company can take a look at each other, essentially.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is the last thing, and maybe Trudy, then I'll pass it over to you because I'm just looking at the time. I see here I don't have a question, but I wanted to thank UHC for always doing above and beyond with helping my students. Your partnering is greatly appreciated.
Aww.
So that's kudos to you, Marianne, and your organizations. Those are very good kudos to get.
That's very kind. Thank you. And we're here. We're here to help. Thank you.
Okay, so Trudy, I don't see any more questions popping up. I'll just turn it over to you to close.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your knowledge today. It's amazing how much the Employment Ontario network does, and I think it's still one of the best kept secrets in Ontario. I think so many employers are still not aware of what's out there to them. It's funded by the Government of Ontario through the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, and it's an amazing resource for employers regardless of where you are in the recruitment process. Employment Ontario, through their over 300 locations throughout the province, can help you find what you need, and it's of no charge to the employer or the job seeker. So it's absolutely incredible that this exists, and people really need to take advantage of it. So thank you both very much. The recording will be available on the OCWI website. I'm not sure the timeline, probably within the next week or so it'll be posted. So if you miss part of it, or if you have any colleagues you think would benefit, by all means you can direct them to the website. And I think UHN is going to post it on their website as well and distribute it once it's available. So again, thank you both so much, and thank everyone for attending on a Monday morning. I appreciate you starting your week with us, and I hope you have an awesome week.
Thank you.
Thank you.